everybody, dear my friends and my professors, my colleagues from different fields and universities and institutions. So we are here this Saturday to listen today's keynote speaker, dearest Kay Adshead, and she is going to talk about living on the edge, chaos in theater, film, and performance conference with her speech making theater on the edge for 50 years with a question: why do the working classes feel expelled from theater? But before moving on to her speech, let me introduce her briefly so that we will have more ideas about her career and about what she did so far. Kay Adshead is a British playwright, poet, actor, and producer raised in Stretford. She attended a girls' grammar school and performed as a child actor at Stretford Children's Theatre. She trained at RADA, graduating in 1974 with the Emily Littler Outstanding Talent Award. Her notable roles include Kathy in the BBC's Wuthering Heights, Linda in My Play's Kiss of Death, Sue McKenna in Acceptable Levels, and Tansy in Mermaid. She voiced Clara Twain in Adrian Mitchell's opera White Sweet Blues and appeared as Betty in Stephen Law's Touched, both at the Old Vic Theatre. She also played Moll Gromer in Philip Martin's Thee and Me at the Royal National Theatre. Kay Adshead has written more than 25 plays, including White Sweet Blues, Thatcher's Women, The Stillborn, The Bogus Woman, Metal and Feathers, Bites, Stuffed, Possessed. If anyone recognizes these young people, I'm sad you are dead, Mrs. T. All the plays stretches between the year 1985 till 2013. They are all published by Methuen and Oberon Books, with commissions or productions at major UK venues, including the Royal National Theatre, the Royal Court, the Young Vic, the Lyric Hammersmith, the Cockpit, the Bush, the Arcola, and Soho Theatre. Her awards include a Fringe First, the Adelaide Fringe Sensation Award, Adelaide Fringe, Best Fringe Performance, the MEN Best Fringe Performance, and the 2023 Scene Savers Best Play Award for The Last Little Girl. She has been a three-time Susan Smith Blackburn finalist with her plays Thatcher's Women, The Bogus Woman, and Bites, and MMA nominee for The Bogus Woman. In 1999, with Lucinda Gain, she co-founded multi-award-winning theater company Mama Killa. She has devised and directed more than 10 large-cast experimental and live art, site-specific projects, often working within hard-to-reach communities, creating empowering performance within vulnerable and disadvantaged communities. The Financial Times praised Mama Kila's passionate concern about oppression. The Guardian reported Mama Kila shows that the theater still has the capacity to address public issues. And One World reported one production, a magnificent, fantastical roar against a world in which half the population is excluded. ignored, derided, mistreated. This is Kay Adshead. And we have the bogus woman as a special case, which is kimliksiz kadın in Turkish, and the play has been translated by Pelin Doğan Özgür into Turkish, Özger, sorry, into Turkish, and the book was published by Mitos Boyut. Let me also show you the book, which I very proudly present. Thank you, Pelin, for what you did. So the audience can also get the book and read it if anyone is interested. So now I am going to leave the mic to the dearest playwright, Kay Adshead, for her keynote speech. Welcome.
Thank you. That was wonderful. She was great. It's all downhill from now on. So, well, thank you very much for that. I've never done an online seminar before, and I've never done a PowerPoint presentation before. So, fasten your seatbelts. I just really do not know what is going to happen. It's all been terrible so far. But I accepted the invitation from Pelin because I just love the title, Living on the Edge, Chaos in Theatre, because I have been making theatre with people who are living on the edge for very, very many years, and I feel very passionate about it. And I love the word chaos because I like theatre to be unpredictable, and I love non-linear live art and things that are fragmentary. I love experimental theatre. But as you will realise, that is not what I do. That is not my practice. I am a writer who writes linear plays with words, by and large, although that has changed in the last 5 or 6 years. So since 2019, I've been doing an awful lot of large-scale community work. And I mention that because never are you in a more chaotic environment than when you've got 30 people in a room on the first day of rehearsal. 7 professionals and all the rest are amateurs, exploring one issue in which everybody feels very passionate about. And so you have like a great big lump of clay, and part of your work is you take bits of that clay out and make little models here and there and here, and then you have a drone shot of it all. So out of that kind of mass chaos, you impose linear and structure and form. So that is an awful lot what I do. But just because I use words, and I love words, doesn't mean that's what I care most about in theatre. I most certainly don't. So overarching the whole of this talk has to be my opinion, which is that theatre that I see and I feel is the theatre that I remember most, not anything that I hear or that I read on the page. That is what I am passionate about. So I'm a bit of an oddity, really. Or, you can say that again. Can you hear me all right? Am I talking too fast? No, okay. So I just thought I'd like to overarch my speech, which I hope it's not going to be, with telling you 3 most memorable things from theatre that I can remember that touch me and that I've never forgotten, which are not words. And this is the first 3 things, actually, from way, way back. Lindsay Kemp's performance in Flowers at the Roundhouse in 1973. I don't know if any of you know it or have ever seen it, but there is a moment when the main character of that is wearing a beautiful sequined hat, and it is pulled, wrenched off his head, and the shame and the horror he acts out and feels. And I've never forgotten that moment because it was a completely human moment, and every single person has felt like that at some point in their life. And that to me is great theatre. And another bit of great theatre, and forgive my pronunciations of names, it's terrible, but it's Nuria Esper's production of Yerma at the Aldwych, the new theatre season. And I don't know if you know that production, a historic production, but they did it on a trampoline, or like a trampoline. So every time she breathed, something went through that trampoline, and it connected to the other actors on stage who moved again at the same time. And also it went to the audience, so we could feel the vibrations of it. That was another great piece of theatre. And one thing that you might be able to help me with, because I can't find it anywhere, and if anybody can find this, then they can tell Pelin and she can email me afterwards. I saw a production at the Aldwych of huge puppets doing, I think, Jean Genie's The Maids in 1973. And it was the way the puppeteers made the characters breathe. So those are my 3 moments of great theatre. I mean, I know everybody's got different moments of great theatre, but those are mine. And you see they're not connected with words, although that is what I am as a practitioner. Is everybody with me so far? Yeah, good, cool. So can you see you can see my PowerPoint, can you? Wow, that's a huge triumph. I'm beyond thrilled. I mean, this is just something amazing. So there we go. So I will now go on to my first slide, if you all hang with me. So here we go. Okay. Oh dear, it's all going wrong. Yeah. Okay. I just thought I'm starting off the speech with these quotes because the first one I knew I was going to start off with. The second one I just discovered. The first quote, if you can you read it on the screen, or do I need to read it out to you? Okay. Well, the first quote, I was doing a workshop in Leeds, which is a working class northern town, with women who choose to wear the veil. And in the next room was a lot of white working class Leeds women who were making soup for pensioners. So you're talking about really good women, good people who are doing something nice in the community. And you will see from that quote that they had never, not a single one of those women had ever been to the theatre. I was horrified. That actually was in 2015 that I had that conversation. I don't suppose it's changed. I think it's probably got worse. But not a single one. And the reason was that's not a treat for them. I'm going to buy myself a bottle of wine and McDonald's for the kids, and that's going to be my treat. I wouldn't dream of going to the theatre ever. And I do mean ever. So that was horrifying. And the second quote was quite recently, this was in 2024, my company, Mama Kia, put a call out for working class women who wanted to be mentored to write new work. We thought we'd get 20 responses. We got 247. It blotted out almost the entire year. But this quote was very typical from what the women, that's why I've chosen it. They were not interested in anything experimental. That was all kind of arty-farty and it wasn't them. They wanted me to teach them how to pitch for television. And how to learn how to pitch for film, and I found it upsetting because at the end I got 15 working class writers, many of them over 40, who now are core company for Mama Kia, and you'll see at the end of this presentation of mine where they are, so you can fit that in with them. So I think I have to do. That's right. So this is the next one. So you see the quote on there. Why are you showing those nice people that awful old photograph? That's my mum, if she was alive. I think it's quite important, if I'm going to be speaking to you for a little while, that I put myself in some sort of context for you. That is the street that I was born on, but I don't have any memory of that street because that is back Percival Street. I lived on Percival Street, which was the main street, which was a poor working class street in Cheetham Hill, Manchester. It had two up, two down houses on one side, and it had a rag and bone man, a scrap merchant yard on the other. So it was a poor street. And I lived there from 0 to 5. I moved when I was 5, and I'll explain that in a moment. In 1959, all of that area, all of those streets were demolished in the Manchester slum clearance programme. And the bricks were all taken because they were Manchester brick, which was, they were all taken, and they were used for mansions in Lim and Hale, posh Manchester suburbs. And the cobbles that you can't really see there, they were lifted, and I imagine they were taken kind of like factory owners, the old manufacturing classes, to do decorative gardens. So that was where I was born. So that's what happened. The bricks went here, posh houses. The cobbles went here, posh houses. So what happened to the people? So I was very lucky. I had a very ambitious, clever dad. And I moved into a nice semi-detached house in a place called Stretford. This is Cheetham Hill. I stopped being working class, okay, overnight. Suddenly, I became middle class at 5 years old, with trees and grass. So what happened to all my friends? Well, and the people that I played with, I have to say, I dream about, although I was 5 years old when I left, I still dream about being here. It was an immensely happy time. Lots of things are happy, but that was happy. Hey, this is where they went. This is the absolutely famous, infamous Hume Crescents, which was called by all Manchester people like myself the Colosseums, or the Colosseum. So this was the brave new world, and the intentions, I have to say, were very, very good. The intentions were try and take the Georgian crescents of Bath and turn them into a working class environment where we could revolutionise, get rid of the Victorian slums, take working people into the brave new world, give them a new way of living. So this was, and I used to see the Colosseum, getting on the bus from going into Manchester. But by the time it was 1970s, this area was a complete no-go area. It had been a disaster. They were freezing cold in the winter, they were boiling hot in the summer. It was called the City in the Sky because it had sky walkways. They were considered dangerous. There was nowhere for children to play. Families didn't have anywhere to look out for their children. So you're talking about the 1970s. There's a further bit of history with it, but that was when I came across it. So I am 22 years old, and I have not long left RADA. And I did a play for today with Mike Leigh. I don't know if you've heard of the great innovator Mike Leigh, an English director who does a lot of improvised work. And I did a devised TV play with him for a prestigious series called Play for Today on British television. And it completely turned on my head everything I thought about what theatre was, or television was, or film was, because it was completely devised, but in a very unique way. If you want to go and Google him, you'll see how he works. It's very unique and interesting. So I just finished that, so I was in Manchester, and I got another job in Manchester, which was to do a radio play called The Spam Fritter Man. Spam fritters are an English, I would say, not delicacy. They are a working class food. And I went to do a radio play in a recording theatre, which was a kind of a sweet, soggy tale of working class life. So that's where I was at. And the recording studio was right on the edge of the Hume Crescents. And we were all warned, get a taxi here, be careful going back. Well, I was walking back one night, and an elderly woman came up to me and said, I really enjoyed your radio play. We were supposed to be doing a play here with our young people in a community centre, but they don't want to do it. They're not interested in doing it. Would you like to come along tomorrow and talk to everybody? I'd never done anything like this ever before. I'd done plays when I was a kid, and I'd done child acting, but I hadn't devised from scratch anything site-specific like this. But I went along, and I committed to doing it. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this, nobody's ever heard of this. It was completely obscure. I've tried to look for it, but it doesn't exist. It's wiped off reality completely. It doesn't exist. I created this project in 2 weeks, working with 11 young people, one much older person. The girl who played the main character, we called it Mandy's Mother's Last Day, because the main character, she had had some experience of acting and actually wanted to be an actress. I could work with her very, very well. She knew what she was doing. Every day, she used to walk from the flat, which you see at the top of the hume, walk down the walkways, walk across the green, go up, to visit her mother, who was a heroin addict, a huge drug problem, to visit her mum in Cromsall Hospital. So I used that physical journey as the framework for a devised play. But where she kept stopping we did fragments of performance, and the only way I can I can speak about it is that they were a little bit Beckett-esque, if that makes sense. They were not written down, nothing was written down or documented, but we devised them. And so we did all these little monologues, and we had an audience of about 11, 12, it kind of grew. And we did a monologue on the bus, on actual top of the bus. I mean, can you imagine doing that now? You know, I'd get arrested for domestic terrorism if I did that now in London, if I started to do a performance on top of the bus. We did a performance on the bus, and there was a lady a nice lady who said, you can't surprise me. I did happenings outside the cathedral in Victoria. Nothing surprises me. The bus driver didn't bat an eyelid when we got off. What was that you were doing? I said, well, we did a play on top of the bus. And then we came back and we went to the off licence. Well, by the time we got back to the off licence, the police had been called. I say there was about 50, but there was, looking back, and it was probably an audience of more than that. So the reason why I've taken the time to mention this complete obscure piece of work is because if there's anything that's close to being like chaos theatre, literally chaos theatre, never mind any kind of fancy labelling, it was this. And we performed it, and the police watched it, and we finished it, and that was the end of it. And it was one thing, it never happened again. But one really cute kind of thing that I found out through researching for this speech is that Augusto Boal, the great man himself, was in Manchester round about that time. Here's a picture of him, round about the late 70s, and he was working with theatre in prisons and probation. And he was doing theatre of the oppressed. Manchester is a great centre for theatre of the oppressed, and you know why, because it's got a history of social activism, it's radical, it's very diverse, it's very lively, it's very vocal as a city. And so I thought that was kind of like totally cool. I never saw him, and I've never had anything to do with him. And it made me think, he's doing theatre of the oppressed in Manchester, where would chaos theatre go? Well, anywhere, wouldn't it? In a post-Trumpian world, we can do chaos theatre because the world is in such a state, is a tipping point, and in a state of tremendous chaos and turbulence. Are you all with me so far? Are you understanding me and with me? Okay, that's cool. It's very difficult because it's like it would be nice to hear you breathe. It's nice to hear people breathe occasionally, cough, shift about, but there's none of that going on. Okay. Okay, so here we go. So this should be an easy one to talk about. So I'm talking about making theatre on the edge. Well, my goodness me, as I explain in a minute, you do not get a more edge than Working Girls. And as I will, a more despised, horrible to say that, more demonised and despised sector of society than if you do with Working Girls. So let me explain. So we've jumped right to 1987, because as you actually understand, I'm cherry picking enormously. And this is the first play that I wrote, because obviously I was an actress and all the rest of it. And I was at home listening to the radio, and I heard an extraordinary interview from somebody from the English Collective of Prostitutes on Radio 4 late at night. Wonderful, intelligent, intellectual girl, saying that the women of King's Cross, the working girls of King's Cross, was having their pitches queered by women arriving from the northeast and the northwest to work as part-time prostitutes, to earn money, to take home, to pay their bills, to pay the electricity bill, to feed their children. Because there was huge redundancies at that time in the 80s under Thatcher in the north of England, enormous economic hardship from ordinary working families. I thought that was very interesting and said something. They were called Thatcher's women or they were called the away day girls. I thought, oh my goodness me, that's interesting. When I left school, before I went to RADA, I worked at the finishing line at Goblin Meat Pudding Factory. You see, I've had an interesting, diverse life. And I worked in the factory and I worked on the finishing line, and you were in front of a metal basket, and you just literally were picking up tins and putting them on a finishing line, and you were doing that all day. And I worked with 6 other girls. So I thought I would put those two worlds together, the world of the ECP and the Thatcher's women, and the women that I knew, because I knew there was economic hardship going on in their families, and I knew that the meat pudding factory had been closed down. So you would then have families, and I knew that because of my own personal experience with my mum and dad and with our neighbours and friends and neighbours. There was no money coming in. Nothing. So I thought, well, what if it was those women that were forced to go away and do that? Well, Thatcher's Women was very successful for me. I mean, a rare success. And it started me, although there's actually quite a long gap before my next success, but hey. But that world, in terms of lessons learned from, I should have mentioned for the other thing as well, lessons learned, is that never is there a subject matter that would better benefit from chaos theatre, because their lives are so destructively chaotic, non-linear, unpredictable. And I've revisited that world a few times. I did a play called The Last Little Girl, which was about sex trafficking. I did it in Houston, Texas. And Houston, Texas is the sex trafficking capital of the world. So it was particularly resonant there. I also did something with a company about women who are exiting prostitution called A Cracked Plaster Sky. But I did a project called Working Girls, and on my handout, you'll see there's quite a lot of links that you can have a look, and they're really worth just having a look at them. They're quite interesting. And the most adventurous of that raft of plays was a thing called 3 Police Statements Taken from Working Girls. And I got actual police statements that I started off with in terms of making theatre. And then they kind of spiraled into a kind of poetic journey that I took the girls on. And I think it would probably benefit from physical theatre approach and working with Butoh and dance and sound and music and even opera, So I hope I've made myself clear. And I must say, lesson learned from that is, listen to the radio for late at night, because they have some cracking ideas for plays if you do that, I think. So I should probably do that more. I don't do that as much anymore. And as I said, the conclusion is, my goodness me, that is a chaotic and appalling, difficult life. Yay! We're now on the bogus woman. Which you can read in everything, that. Goodness me, this is a great big jump again. This is 1997. This is the play that really I found my voice with. Up until that point, I didn't know what kind of writer I was, or artist I was, or anything, but I'll just take you through it. So I was asked by the Red Room, which was a fantastic company, if I would contribute something for their Seeing Red project, because people were fed up, very much like now, actually, with a Labour government that had been in for 18 months that wasn't delivering the goods. So I was delighted to do this. At exactly the same time, I saw a rooftop protest at Campsfield Detention Centre. And I didn't know anything about people seeking asylum at all, or anything about detention centres. And I thought, well, I want to find out more about that. It looks so interesting. So I got in touch with the Campaign to Close Campsfield, who I basically researched this play with. So The Bogus Woman tells a story of what it is really like to seek asylum in the UK in 1997, not what the Daily Mail told us, which everybody believed. And this issue was really new to everybody. Nobody really knew that people were coming and seeking asylum or what was going on at that time. It was deemed unproducible when I wrote it because it's a performance for one actress, but it's 40 characters. And people looked at it and said, well, nobody can do that. Nobody's going to be able to do that. Well, of course, that was ludicrous because being an actress myself, I totally understand what actors can do. Actors are always underestimated in what they can do, always underused. Delighted to be able to, especially brilliant actors like Noma was. So originally I wrote the Bogus People's poem, which was done at Battersea Arts Centre, and then that was deemed successful, and I went on to write The Bogus Woman. I chose to write that piece in verse, and that was a turning point for me. I mean, my plays are always poetic, and Thatcher's Women was poetic, and all the other stuff I'd done was poetic. But it wasn't written in a kind of flat verse. It just wasn't. And the liberation when I did that, the fact that I didn't have to be naturalistic, or I didn't have to ape naturalism or naturalistic conversations, was an absolute turning point for me. It was amazing and liberated me. And I always try and write in verse now if I possibly can. I've put on my point, black people want to tell their own stories now, and I get it. Okay, just want to say, I absolutely get it. I mean, that doesn't mean that I don't think anybody shouldn't write for everybody. I actually do that, but I understand totally where they are coming from. Absolutely 100%. I will still carry on doing my own thing. We have to have a broad church in terms of what we do. So just very briefly, I hope that's all been clear. I hope I've made clear the importance of Bogus Woman for me. I mean, what was my lesson learnt in that? My lesson learnt was it was a perfect storm. And you get a brilliant actors and you are 50% there, in terms of being a writer. And I had brilliant actors in Thatcher's Women as well, but being an actor myself, I'm a great believer in getting absolutely brilliant actors. Now, although I wrote that in 1997, I have stayed quite close to the plight of refugees and asylum seekers in writing workshops. And this is just a nice little picture of what Mama Kia does. We work at the Alexandra Palace, and I do writing workshops in order for them to tell their own story and to feel empowered. That's the first two pictures. And we enjoy ourselves. We have a laugh, and everything's wonderful. The last one is a performance of The Soldier's Son, which I did with the Mothers Campaign with the Crossroads Women's Centre, and that was a particularly poignant piece of work because I worked with survivors of rape in wartime. So that I'm very proud of that piece. Actually, it's never been done as a full production. It's a short piece. It's 25 minutes, and we did a script in hand production for when we did Acts of Defiance. So, shall I carry on? Yeah, I'm gonna speed up a little bit now. Good to kind of like mix it up a little bit. So I'll talk about these three plays very quickly. I just have to explain that now. I'm like, by the time I finished Bogus Woman, I was like a proper writer and everything. People were commissioning me to write plays. I was actually turning down commissions because of the success of that play. And I was able to not act so much. I'd wanted to kind of like do much more writing, and I was able to do it. And I don't know if you realise, but I don't know if it's the same, but in Britain, writers have about 7 years. If you're a reasonably, you have about 7 years, a window of 7 years where people ask you, and then they look for the next best thing, and that's just the way it is. Nobody's moaning about it. It's just the way it is. So this is Animal, and this was not a Mama Kia production. It was written for the Red Room, And I'll just read the synopsis because it's a shortcut to getting into it. In the heart of a London park, there is a beautiful house. Inside, the homeless, raging Pongo has volunteered for an anger management drug trial. But isn't anger vital to our humanity? And I wrote this play because when I was on the Stop the War 2003, Stop the War March, the huge, massive march, there was rumours that they were using non-lethal aerosols to control the crowd. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it was rumoured. I thought it was very, very interesting, the whole notion of that in terms of government and personal liberties and all the rest of it. Well, I lived a lot of time in Houston, Texas. I've lived between the UK and America, and I was researching over there. And I mention this by the by because I just think it's so interesting, and I think it's so interesting to talk about research, about the point of research. I discovered that Johnson & Johnson, the baby powder company, they did experiments on prisoners in American prisons by cutting their back. They were paid $1 a day. You volunteered to do it. They would get their backs cut, and they would have so instead of testing on animals, they tested on black prisoners in American prisons, and put little bits of asbestos into their skin and all kinds of things. Absolutely horrific. I could not believe it was going on. This was anyway. But the reason why I include it is because it's rather pertinent to my whole idea of this story of testing on human beings. And also at the heart of it is we have to be, part of our personal liberties, we have to be allowed to be angry. And it's very pertinent now, everybody's cracking down on protests. In this country, they're dragging 60-year-old people in because they're protesting about Palestine and holding up placards. Anyway, I really enjoyed that play, and it was well received and was successful. Be quick again. This was Bites. By the way, let's just make clear, living on the edge. So on the edge is obviously I'm thinking about those prisoners and those people who are homeless, or the people that are their human guinea pigs. This is Bites. This was written by me for the Bush. And it was given it was given lots of productions actually, but I didn't see those, but I saw these two. The production of Bites was our production, Mama Kia, but I was very disappointed with the production. Bites was inspired by my years living in Houston, Texas, and it draws an analogy between fundamentalist Afghanistan and fundamentalist American religious far right in both contexts. The one thing I have to say about this play is that researching this play was the most harrowing experience that I have ever had, because of what was going on to women under the Taliban. And I got to know all this much more on a personal level with working with the Revolutionary Association of the Women of Afghanistan. I met two women when they gave a talk for the Fabian Society. I saw them afterwards. I then went up and met with the other lady again, and we became friends. I met her about 2 or 3 times in London. And she told me of what was going on. It's early on a Saturday, and I'm not going to go into it. All I will just say was that what they told me was graphic and horrendous. I'm not going to talk any more about it on a Saturday morning in a Zoom meeting. In actual fact, she got in touch with me quite recently when the shameful abdication by the US and the UK of Afghanistan, which is beyond belief. She was asking if I, of all people, could get her to come over to London, because she was so frightened for her daughter, because she'd been working as a teacher, an English teacher, and they'd all been involved with the kind of UK-US world over there. Of course, I couldn't do anything. And I had to get rid of all my messages that she sent me, and I've never heard from her again. And I don't know what has happened to her. I hope they were trying to get out of Afghanistan, but a lot of people didn't. She was telling me at the time that a lot of young women were being, like her daughter, were being abducted and disappeared. So, this is serious stuff. This is really serious stuff, Bites. And I think it might be the play that I'm proudest of, really. I'll tell you the strange history to it. We produced it, and I hated our production. We did it at the Bush, and I didn't like it, because talking about styles of theatre, the director, who was a friend and all the rest of it, they wouldn't get behind my idea that I wanted a conceptual piece. They wouldn't get my idea behind that, and there was willful mistakes done to it. For example, one of the plays is set in a lingerie bar that are frequent in Houston, and they set it with her in a door with red lights around it. Well, she's not from Amsterdam. She wasn't a prostitute or working girl. She was just a waitress in a frilly nightie. But so that was a question of design or taking what was the truth of the text. But there is a happy ending, because this picture is taken from a production that was done in a deserted bank, would you believe, in LA. It was directed by Elena Vanoni, and it was astonishing. I felt vindicated, because it was a miserable experience seeing my play just not right. But she did this brilliant production, which was as if she'd been sitting inside my head. And she produced a very conceptual, very beautiful link, because it's 7 short plays, and they need to be linked, they need to feed off each other, and they need to... the other one was like, play after play after play. It was a wonderful production. It was recently being given a reading at the University of Columbia. It's very current, this play, even now, because of what's happening in America, obviously, with Trump. And, so... Are you still with me? Yeah, okay. And this is the third one of these that I'm trying to kind of compress and talk about. I wrote I have to say, what was my lesson learned from Bites? If you have a vision of a play, you have to direct it yourself. You can't just impose. It's not really fair. And I had, up until then, not done a lot of directing of my own plays, because they don't like you to do that in England. They think you're greedy if you do that, or you're an egomaniac if you direct your own play. But I pushed through, and I wrote and directed this, and this was a very happy experience for me. And I worked with Sarah Niles, who I must tell you that both of these actresses, Nomada Maswini and Sarah Niles, they're big stars in America now. Because not because of me or working with me, but just because they're just brilliant actresses, and I was lucky enough to happen, to get them to work on my pieces. And Bites had such a profound effect on me in terms of the horrors of the world, really. I could not keep on doing these dark plays. This is a dark play, but you'll see it celebrates truth and reconciliation as a path to hope and forgiveness. Although it's quite a cheeky and naughty play in lots of ways, but he does it in a roundabout way. So that was kind of like my period when I was, a proper writer and everything, and getting money, and hey, it was great. So I'm now going to go to The Singing Stones, which is a big leap into 2015. I'll read the synopsis. Back in 2011, all over the Arab world, veiled women took to the streets to protest. Their calls for change were briefly celebrated, soon derided, and eventually ignored. For the first time on stage, the Singing Stones, this was from a review actually, gave voice to their extraordinary stories. Well, I don't know where to begin talking about this, because it was a very difficult piece to pull off. The picture is there, The Singing Stones. I mean, the best thing about me doing this is that, I don't know if you've heard of Masasi Mati. Have you heard of them? Anybody heard? You must look them up, okay, because if there is ever a hero of revolutionary theatre, which is these people, in about 2011, they started doing finger puppets, little tiny finger puppets, and making fun of Assad, Bashar, and the whole Syrian regime, mocking them. So it was a form of propaganda. They would do them in basements of shops very secretly, because if they were caught, people were killed. I mean, lots of young men were killed. It was the most terrible time in Syria. It was just appalling. And they took them round, and then they put them on YouTube anonymously, and then they became a bit of a sensation. But they are, I mean, I don't know how I can express my admiration for this group. I mean, if ever there was any, they were little finger puppets. They're only tiny, so they could be hidden easily, very, very easily. They could be hidden. And laughing at these monsters and the dictators was a tremendous boost to the Syrian people. And to me, they are incredible. Well, they did a short film for us, and they allowed me to use some of their films. I wrote for a puppet, you can see in the picture, I wrote Ruler, and I wrote a puppet into my script. This is, some of The Singing Stones is great. It got some good reviews, it got some awful reviews. It was described as a great baggy beast of a play. It was overwritten, over-ambitious, and the problem was I had a very inexperienced cast, because I'd been working at the City Lit, which is a very esteemed institute in Britain, and I've been making theatre, and I worked with this group, and I thought they were lovely. But when I did Singing Stones, they just did not have the experience, in all honesty, to pull this project off. I'm not blaming them. It was a very difficult project for me. So there you go, it's all swings and roundabouts. What did I learn from that? I'm really not sure. I mean, I learned, I think, not to overreach myself. There was 10 actors in that. It was funded by the Arts Council. 9 women, 1 man. And there's a link to it, and you can see some other pictures. It looks fantastic. And as I said, working with the Syrian puppet group is amazing. You must discover them, because they are just amazing. I don't think they're around anymore. I don't know what happened. Yay! I'm on to Vale already, so I'm doing really well. Well, I talked about Vale very briefly at the beginning. This was another good thing about the Singing Stones, because I did this in tandem with the Singing Stones. And I worked with Kuli Tayari and Shanaz Golzara. Now, in terms of talking about chaos theatre, or whatever that means, whatever it means to anybody, I did workshops with veiled women in Leeds, Bradford and Manchester. And Shanaz Golzara, who lived in Bradford, did a lot of interviews. She taped the interviews, and they were recorded through listening domes. So on the performance of Vale, there would be an audience, and then they would be, at the beginning, invited to get up out of the audience and come and listen under these 3 listening domes to their stories. So it was kind of cool, and that was her part of it. Shanaz Golzara had also chosen to wear a veil at one point, and then had not. But so that was her. And then I wrote stories of 4 women. I'll show you on the next page, but this was me in a workshop. I wish I could say this workshop was a triumph and that it was absolutely wonderful. It was a very upsetting experience. It was in, actually no, this one wasn't. This is a picture in West Gorton in Manchester, and this one was fine. But one of the workshops that I was in, the women were very, I don't know, it was because they were veiled, but they felt very dominated by the men in their lives. Nothing to do with the veil, but they didn't go out to work. They weren't really, it wasn't really part of their culture to go out and work. Not the women that I did. I'm not saying there aren't women I'm just saying totally personally from my experience of those 3 workshops. They looked after their children. A lot were very depressed and a lot were on medication. And it made me a bit sad. And out of interest, this was done in West Gorton, Manchester, which is just round the corner from where my grandma lived. So I knew this area very well. And it was a very emotional experience for me going back there. You know, when you go back to somewhere that you've not been for years. I hadn't been there since I was 15, and there was something in the air, that it all physically different, but I recognised it. So this is the production of Veil. This is the happy collaboration. It looked absolutely beautiful. I've got much nicer photographs than this, but I wanted to show you the listening dome. And I told 4 stories of 4 very, very different women: a Singaporean capitalist, a Pakistani doctor, a yuppie, and actually a nomad, a sub-Saharan nomad. And I told those stories, and this was good, and I was happy with this. I was happy with the way it was very word-led, but it was kind of, it looked very beautiful as well, and was very resonant. And then we had the listening domes, which was great. And I put this in very quickly because I did a thing called Theatre of Process at the Roundhouse. I worked with 80. I could have done millions of photos. I worked with 80 performers, with lots of different sections of people from all over, but this was my favourite. I worked with Barking College of Performing Arts because there was a lot of protest from young people at that time, and we did a thing called If Anyone Recognises These Young People, which was on the television. You know, shop them. If you recognise these young people, turn them in. And it was good fun, and I enjoyed it. And that was a devised. I'm going to go on to my devised work quite soon, and that was semi-devised, partly written, but mostly devised, but good fun. So we're talking about living on the edge, making theatre with people that live on the edge in chaos. And Acts of Defiance was 3 short plays originally. It developed into a festival. And I explored sex trafficking in the north of England called The Last Little Girl. You can see that there, the first picture. We did that in Houston, America as well. Then I did the grooming gangs in Oxford. I did a piece called Primrose. And then I did a piece on the one-child forced abortion policy. So it was really Acts of Defiance. It was women, poor young women, defying the odds, really, because they were, all of those 3 women were survivors of sorts. I was happy. It's never been published. I don't know why, because it gives great parts for young actors of colour. But I was very happy with that. And what did I learn from that? I don't know. I think I learned from that is just sometimes we were on a winning spree with that. So much so that we developed a festival, and in this I did another play, and I got other writers, very esteemed writers, as you could see on there, if you know, and esteemed directors. I got very good company, and we followed it by a debate: can theatre ever change anything? Which was a lively debate, but it was a festival of new writing, short filmmaking, because I was getting into filmmaking here, spoken word performance, and it was all exploring female insurrection. But some things are happy, aren't they? And that was a very happy experience. Yay, we're here at last. Because with my making theatre for 50 years, I put a little parenthesis in and said, why do the working classes feel expelled from British theatre? And if you can have a look at some of those, I'm not going to read them all out. I mean, just have a look at some of them. We don't know where the theatre is, tickets are too expensive, they should put free stuff on for kids. I'll explain what the Working Class Project was, because it was a massive project, and it was, as far as I'm concerned, hugely successful, because process and product were both very successful with it. We were adjunct to Colchester, to the City of Culture. A play I'd written long ago for the Royal Court called Bacillus, I thought deserved another outing. I renamed it Virillicus, and it's about the next English revolution of working people. So it was absolutely right for the working class. We did it at the Shop Front Theatre in Coventry, which is just all in Britain. A lot of the high streets are closing down, and there's a lot of these empty shops, and it's called Theatre Absolute. And we went in as a guest of theirs for a couple of days, and we did a reading of my production. And I don't know if you have these anywhere, but in England we have something called Pound World, Poundland. And they're like dollar shops. Do you know what that means? Like, like shops that sell things very cheaply. Well, we did a residency in there. We did a day's residency in Pound World, and we interviewed all the customers, and this is where we got these. And we did an interview on the street, and we did an interview in the market, and this was where we got all these ideas from why working class people either don't feel welcome in theatre. The first one, we don't even know where the theatre is. That came up all the time. And Colchester's got Belgrade Theatre, and I mean, it's crazy. So, but there's a big thing that a link to. I tell you everything that we did for the working class theatre. It's worth having a look at because it was very successful. And sometimes you do these projects and you feel, well, that I didn't make a difference there. That was a complete waste of time. I might kid myself I did. I might pretend it was very successful. But I think with this project that we really did make a difference with this project and got people going to the theatre. And a lot of the people that we met that day, they're still in touch with us now. When I finish speaking, which won't be too far off, I hope we can talk about well, you can ask me questions about anything about my presentation, but maybe you can enlighten me about what you think about the working classes that are from your communities. Do they go to the theatre? Right. So we're now really, which is fun for me, in the last section. Which has been very surprising. I lived in America for a long time. I did lots of stuff over there, which I haven't included in this presentation, obviously. But we came back in 2020, and it was the pandemic. Oh no, this was in 2019. It's actually making bums on the edge. This was before the pandemic. I came back from America to make this project. It was actually an Alexandra Palace and Jackson Lane production. It wasn't a Mammakia production. But I know the Ali Pali very well, and they wanted somebody that could work with a great big crowd because it was a great big huge project. And so I came in and I devised this project. It's solely devised. Hardly anything was written down. And it is my most successful community project that I have ever done. It was called Section 28 in the Queer State. Section 28 in Britain was the heinous, it banned the promotion of, positive promotion of homosexuality in schools and in education, would you believe? And it was repealed. And this project was a celebration of the repeal of it. And Haringey's part in that, because the borough of Haringey had a huge, lively LGBTQ community, and the part that they played in the repeal of it. So I told a story, or we developed a story that celebrated it. We started off it was centered around a family with a father who'd been gay and who finally came out. This is way before they did it on television. They've done it on television recently, but we did it here in our story, and he came out very late in life, and the impact on the family and on his community. And there's just two pictures here, but I could show you so many pictures of this. We did it as a site-specific promenade. So back to Mandy's, back to the first thing that I did. We did it we travelled around the East Court of the Alexandra Palace, doing scenes here, there and everywhere. Finally coming back into the foyer of the theatre, which we played, working our way through into the Victorian theatre. This was not the penultimate scene. I didn't put a picture of that in, but in the end we were joined by a choir called the Angels of Chaos, and it was a celebration of the gay world in the end. And everybody was dressed up, and as you can see, everybody had, you can't see, I should have put more pictures of this actually. Everybody was in kind of boiler suits, apart from the character there at the front, who is a kind of a metaphorical figure at the beginning. But this was wholly successful, and I mean, I'm not saying that immodestly, I'm just saying it worked on every level, because it worked, everybody enjoyed the process. It was a huge, massive thing, and everybody loved performing it, and the audience just loved it. So I'm really proud of that, hugely. So nearly at the end now, coming to the final bit. So I have to tell you the story of Stormy the Opera. I'll read you the synopsis. It says, in a country ruled by a dangerous and crazed despot, stripped of all its precious liberties, only ancient burlesque queens, Stormy Heart, Stormy Mind, and Stormy Soul can save America from a crashing descent into bloody fascism. Well, we devised this in 2016. We devised the story of it, and I wrote it, it's written. And I was living in America during the first election, and I could see trouble ahead right away. In Texas, I was in Texas, and I could see exactly the writing on the wall. And we started a platform for collaborating international artists. So if anybody wants to collaborate with me there is a platform there that's already there called Stingery. It wasn't a Mamma Kia production really, because I don't ever act in a Mamma Kia production, but as you can see, I'm acting in this. And I wrote this, not an opera really at all, and it was inspired by Stormy Daniels really, and her kind of fight against Trump. And it's an absolute mess. I'll tell you the story of it. It was due to be, we were funded to do a tour around Texas, but because of the pandemic, it was cancelled. I got a very nice grant to do it, so I thought that instead of cancelling the whole project, I would use the video from the preview, which was just a work. It wasn't intended, it was just intended as a point of reference. It wasn't intended at all as anything to be seen by the public. And I used that as the bedrock. And I edited in images. And are these on the next page? Let me show you. Yeah, here you are. So I learned how to edit. So I discovered the word bricolage, film bricolage. And once I'd discovered that, the world was my oyster. So I was able to, so basically I edited in these images around the story. And of course it was, well, not of course, but it was very successful in festivals. And I suppose a lot of these film festivals, as I'm sure you know, are not really worth the paper they're written on, of course. But we were finalists for the Houston Film Festival, which is 57 years old. And so, hey, you know, life is very unexpected. Here I am now making films, hybrid art films. I've never had any ambition at all, ever to make films or to make hybrid films. I didn't even know what a bricolage was. It was only, I thought, oh, hey, well, that's what I'm going to call it, and it worked for me. So, you know, crazed with power after Stormy the Opera, which I was, I then went on to do another one. I did a thing called the Pangolin Project, which was through the, it was a film project, so we didn't have to be all in the same room together. And it was based on short films. I commissioned 6 esteemed British artists, and they created 3-minute films responding to how the pandemic changed the world. So that was 6 films. And then and then they also had to do 3 minutes interactive material. So film, which they had to perform in, that was the rule. And then they did interactive material, which was pretty groovy. And best of all, I think I got 12 complete new filmmakers to do a 1-minute film saying how the pandemic changed me. It's there, it's on our Stingflix channel, and it's both my films are very odd, but you can dip in and out of them and see what they're like. And I turned the Pangolin Project into this film. It was too good. It was too good not to. The material was too interesting not to. And this is also, it hasn't got lots of pretty laurels on it because I haven't had time to put them on. But this also was was successful. Are you still with me? Yeah, okay. Hanging in there. We're nearly at the end now, so I can slow down a little bit. So I'm now with Mamma Kia, and excuse me, in the UK, thinking I've been doing lots of different things. How do I bring the company back up really and doing work? So as I said, I put an advert in for working class female writers, and at the end of all that schmozzle, I got 15 that I worked with. And this was really a showcase for them, actually. I just invited them to write pieces, 3-minute pieces. We called it The Women Who, and I devised a kind of design and all the rest of it around it. And it was cool. I mean, it was a very nice piece of work, and it was done with another writer and their piece, and I contributed a piece, and I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of them. There's another that we did that at Camden People's Theatre. The other one was at the Alexandra Palace, and they're still involved with the company. And then I did this in March of this year, and this was called Crossing No Man's Land. And I said we did women and war workshops. It was this group of women, the same group of women. We'd lost some because they were doing work of their own, or they had family issues or whatever. But we had about 9 or 10 at the end. And this is called Crossing No Man's Land. This is wholly no, this is not wholly devised. They came up with, I said, women and war workshops. So they came up with characters and stories from war. And I devised a skeleton, and it was actually people marching. I got women marching and keep stopping up marching and then giving testimony. And I really loved this show. And I would have liked to have taken it further and do much, much more with it. It was for the Mentoring You Women Artists Writers Initiative. I really enjoyed it. It was good fun. Oh, and here's some more pictures. See, it was quite a groovy looking show. Yeah. And then this is just what I've just done. This is we contributed Artists for Gaza. We just did this on November the 26th. Just finished this. I'm going to develop this next year, along with another play I'm doing called Bad Stuff, which is about the manosphere, if I get funding for it. And this is about 3 stories from stories from the edge. Yeah, this is about the waves is about a small boat's crossing, based on a true story. The mountains, I go back to Afghanistan and talk about the plight of women now. And the streets is, what if we had a nuclear war and Hackney Wick was blown up and people were making shrouds for people in London? She's a shroud maker, but we take the whole of the Gaza kind of story and put it in Hackney Wick in London. And then I think my final one says, please follow us here. This is Mamakia, this is my company, and that's our Facebook page. Our website is so in need of updating, but it would be fantastic if you could follow us, because we're worth following. We do interesting work. We've been around a long time, and I don't spend any of my budget on marketing at all. So I don't do that. I spend the money on paying people and paying people a decent wage and all the rest of it. That's finished. Yay!
Thank you for the
For the
wonderful
wonderful
words
words
and
and
perspectives.
perspectives.
Um, Maybe you can just mute. Thank you, which is now better. So thank you once again for this inspiring and retrospective look to your work and to the theater in Britain and the interrelational comings and goings between the United States and Britain. So it was really nice to listen you this Saturday afternoon. Thank you. I know we have some time, little time. Maybe we can just move on with Q&A if the audience, if the listeners here have questions. Maybe it might be practical to ask the questions through chat. I don't know. Maybe we have already a message here in the messenger. I don't know, dear Kay. did you if you saw the message, there is a message. You can just see it through the messenger. It was from Dr. Kay Walter, right? Addressing you for further uh, for further exchange through email.
Hocam, I think she cannot see. Maybe we can read
Oh,
it.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So,
So I can't see those. I haven't got them. They're not here. The messages aren't
okay,
here. So sorry.
I
I
would
would
read.
read. Oh, you will read. That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have
we
we
have the
have the
mail here from Dr. K. Walter. Have you ever worked with the Horsefall at Manchester's 42nd Street? Your talk reminds me of Carol Churchill's Top Girls, which I staged with a handful of undergraduate students a few years ago. Will you please share your email address or your preferred contact information? I would like to follow up this conference with further conversation with you. So there's an email here. Maybe we can send the email to you through email. I think Pelin can do this.
I will do
She
it.
can, yes. So maybe you can contact them. Yeah. So if the audience, if the listeners have further questions, comments, you can write either in chat through Messenger, or you can just talk and ask your questions or your comments. Maybe we can, I don't know. Oh, you have? Yes, we have.
Is it me?
Yes, it's
Hi,
you,
okay.
Tuba,
You can hear me, right? Okay.
properly.
So, first of all, thank you so much for this inspiring speech because I am studying chaos and theater, and your speech inspired me a lot. So, I would like to thank you for your brilliant ideas on stage. Uh, my question will not be about your presentation and your ideas because it was all clear, but I would like to ask you another perspective, another playwright in Britain. And I would like to learn, if possible, about your ideas on Howard Barker, who can be considered as your contemporary, if I'm not mistaken, and his theory, theater of catastrophe, because I'm studying him, and maybe it would be awesome to hear from you and know.
I'm a great admirer of Howard Barker.
Nice.
I love, who doesn't love Howard Barker? I love Howard Barker. And I could
Yeah.
have added one of my very, very moments of theatre is in, I think it's The Castle, when Harriet Walter, when the character is tethered to a corpse. Um, and I would say that is a great moment of theatre. But don't ask me. I'm not an expert on other playwrights. All I can say is, yes, I think Howard Barker is great and he's wonderful. I don't know what he's doing at the moment. I don't know him personally, but I am, like you, I am a great, huge fan of Howard Barker.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much
much.
because you said that living on the edge, chaos on stage, and the first name came to my mind was Howard Barker, and it was inspiring to, it was like very supportive to hear it from you. I'm not alone. Thank you so much for this beautiful comment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful, wonderful writer.
Any
Any
other
other
comment
comment
or
or
question?
question?
No?
No?
Yes,
Yes,
Pelin?
Penny.
Hey, thank you very much for this wonderful speech. It was very inspiring, and it was very nice to see you here with us today. I would like to hear more about, firstly, I really appreciate what you are doing with Mama Quilla, particularly your project working with working with workshops with people coming from underprivileged backgrounds. and you said there were 20 working class writers you work together.
We have got we put a call out. I thought we'd get 20. We got 247 people coming back. It was an incredible amount. And out of that number, we've got 15. We've got a little kind of 15 writers. And that's who I did The Women Who with. And that's who I did Crossing No Man's Land with. I cannot keep doing those great big shows. It's not sustainable because I'm quite busy at the moment. I've got other things to do. But our ethos for the company is neglected. We concentrate on neglecting human rights issues, putting the spotlight on that. But also we want to create opportunities for women, especially older women, because once you've got to 40 in the UK and you haven't been a success, whatever that means, it's very, very hard. And it's crazy. I mean, it's just such a waste of so many interesting women, and most of ours are over 40. So yeah, and I love the work I'm doing with them.
And I was going to,
do you want me to?
Okay, something else. Okay, that's really great. And it's really great to help them assert themselves and regain their voice. It's really great. I was going to ask you, has anybody completed, writing her play, get staged? Maybe you can unmute yourself first.
You mean from my group? Yeah. I mean, the big triumph is that for The Women Who, one of our actors brought in a play called Motherhood, which was a lived experience project about knife crime because she'd experienced it with her own son. And she brought the speech in, and we don't take any credit for moving her on, but we did give her the oxygen of being able to perform it and the confidence of that. And she's got a tour out. She's got an Arts Council grant, and she's touring with it. It's absolutely amazing. And two other of my writers, Wendy Young and Cherie Hughes, they contributed for the Artists for Gaza, The Calling of St. June, which was a piece that they did for Crossing No Man's Land. So, I mean, talk about, success. I mean, they are definitely going out there and creating their own work. It's wonderful. I'm happy.
Great.
Okay, I think there's one more question. Tuba, we are listening to you.
Thank you very much, Kay. When I see your name in the program, I was really excited because I have read one of your plays, and I wanted to thank you for your presentation and the organizing committee for making this possible. Actually, I was researching the use of animals in theater, so I came across with your play, Animal, of course. Since my focus was on real animals, I couldn't include the play in my work, but I still found it fascinating and thought-provoking because it was about another disadvantaged group. Actually, in the play, you are asking us some questions about, conformity, being human or animal. While I was reading the play, I felt like it is a legacy of angry young men of 1950s, because anger was at the heart of working class theater back then. And I felt like it was the legacy because anger was at the very heart of your play. And actually, you are asking questions in the play. You're not giving us easy answers, but I just want to ask you the question, do you think anger still should continue to serve as a defining feature of not only working class theater, but but for theater of people living on the edge, as you beautifully put it? Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think anger is absolutely vital to humanity. I think anger gets things done. we have a right to be angry. If we're not angry about things, I mean, the idea that they can spray non-lethal, sprays over crowds in order to calm them down is horrific. It's an impingement of our human rights. It takes away something about us from being human. No, anger's very useful. We have to feel anger about injustice, or how will we ever change anything? So it's a vital conduit to change, to social change. Yeah. Has that answered your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, maybe a final question, or maybe final comments or further addings, statements? No? If we don't have any questions or statements or comments from the audience, yes, please, dearest Kay Adshead, we would like to hear your final comments and your final statements.
May I have my last question, please?
Ah, no, there's somebody else. Okay, please.
Okay, it's a great chance to see you. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you better. Yes.
Okay, it's a great chance to have you here, Kay Adshead. Thank you for the presentation. We just learned so many plays today from you. My question is about Singing Stones, which was written stage at 2015. Can you please give us a little bit information about this play, because it was one of the attractive plays that
Okay, thank you. Well, it was a celebration of, it was an exploration of, it sprung up from the Arab Spring, and it was actually looked at all kind of different, there was a play there about the Kurdistan women, there was a play that shocked people, which was looking at women looking at Gaddafi down his water pipe. That play was considered very dark. I'm trying to think of, off the top of my head what the other plays in it. Seven plays. Oh, there was a play in Camberwell about people going to protest. So it was 7 short plays all around that came out of the Women's Spring and other kind of things around it. The play of the Kurdistan women I did in Crossing No Man's Land. I reinvented it. We did it in Crossing No Man's Land. That short play. So that's what that was about. And it is the most miserable play and my most miserable production that I ever did. I was not happy with it. And I decided I would never write a play for 10 actors, a great big play again, because it was described as a baggy beast of a play, and it was indeed. I think we have to fess up to our failures, don't we? I think it's great on the page if you want to read it. I mean, I think it reads really, really well. It looks great on the page, but the production didn't work, and I directed it, so, the buck stops with me there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's time to close this session. Dear Kay, do you want to add something else as a final remark? No? Okay.
I think I have said quite enough.
Thank you. So I know in 20 minutes there will be 2 more sessions which will be chaired by dearest Professor Gülşen Sayın and Cenk Tan, 2 different sessions with 4 different speakers in each session. So we will continue listening them. And now we are finishing this session. Thank you.
I'll just say thank you. I just must say,
Yes.
I just want to say thank you to Pelin for organising it, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking for me, a little bit, but it was a good opportunity to reflect. I haven't had the opportunity to reflect on the work I've done, and it was a good opportunity to look back and reflect on my work. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
for us, it was a pleasure to hear the reflection in a retrospective way. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think
we're going to have a break now, like 20 minutes.
sure.
And the sessions will begin, as Hocam, you mentioned, in 20 minutes, in 1:50. Yeah. Thank
Yes,
you.
in 20 minutes time. Thank you. See you.
Thank you, Ferdi Hocam. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.